Roger Williams University is hosting a crisis management seminar on May 3rd at their Providence campus. Crises, whether a natural disaster, cyber attack, or financial instability, can have severe repercussions if not handled properly. This is where crisis management plays a pivotal role. Join Roger Williams MBA students and expert speakers to learn how to prepare for the unexpected. The program is totally free and open to the public. You can register online at rwu.edu/events/crisis-management-symposium.
This is the Bartholomew Town Podcast.
Well, we're going to find out if we're ready or not. Here we go. We're rolling. Senator, thanks so much for your time, and great to be here with you in person in Elmwood, part of your district, and you're running for Congress. I guess the first thing is just introduce yourself and explain to anybody who's not familiar with you who you are and why you're running for Congress.
Well, my name is Ana Quezada. Thank you first to having me here with you. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Ana Quezada, and I came from the Dominican Republic in 1982. I lived most of my life in the United States. First, I live in New York, like most Dominicans. And then in 1990, I moved to Rhode Island, where I had 3 children, but I had 2 were born and raised in Rhode Island. And I had 2 grandchildren. I've been at Senate since 2017, representing the district, like you said. And I've been, working very hard at the Senate. I'm part of the Judiciary Committee and the Education Committee.
A lot of people don't realize or don't include the sacrifice, the experience of leaving a country that you grew up in and coming to the United States. And it's almost like, well, a lot of people do understand that, but there's some people out there that they almost view it as a one-way street. Like, all right, we're giving you everything. So you coming to the United States, it's like it's all on us, and you should be thankful that we're giving you a place to live and exist, so to speak. But at the same time, first of all, they forget that we're all immigrants to this country. I mean, just the blink of an eye, not even. It's like a tip of a pin in terms of the span of not only time, but just in terms of the time that there has been human life in this area we know as the United States today. That's one side of it. But the sacrifice to come to the United States, you mentioned it, leaving behind the world that you knew, leaving behind the family, the friends, the customs, the experience, and then the contribution that you make by bringing your soul to our country. Talk about that, because I feel like that's the most underrated conversation when it comes to anything around immigration. It's never mind undocumented or documented or this or that or whatever, Fox News level conversation there is. Just the human, what was that like for you?
Well, before I answer you that question, I'm going to say why I'm running for Congress.
Please.
Because I didn't say that. We had a very divided country at this time, and we need people who independent thinking, who are going to be able to work with both parties. And one of the reasons I'm running for Congress, because through the years I've been in the Senate, I've been able to work for both parties. I make people uncomfortable many times. I always tell the truth, no matter what it is, and no matter who it is. And I believe we need those unique experience that I got in the Senate to come to work for the United Congress. I believe my experience as a senator and my skills that I have to tell always the truth. Believe me, I would never go behind nobody back. If I have something with you, I come to you. And I said what I think, and then I get it over with. But I has to tell you, and that's one of the things. My husband always said, "Why did you went into politics? Because you like to be too honest." And I said to him, "I think to be a politic, that's me. We need to be honest, and that's why for people to believe in us again, they had to know who you are and where you're coming from." Well, going back to the Dominican Republic, I came here when I was 17 years old. And yes, it's true. It's very hard. I came legally. My father came to this country in 1978, and then he was able to bring his family. And then I had my father when he came. He lived in New York. Well, he came to New Jersey because my family, really, my aunt came to New Jersey, and she was the first one of the family. In 1962, she decided that she wanted to come to the United States, and she did come undocumented. And then she got married, and then she did her green card. Then she was able to bring my grandmother, and my grandmother was able to bring her children, and then her children bring her children. Then, that's how we all. Really, my last name in the Dominican Republic is Leonardo. I'm not Quezada. I'm Quezada because of my husband. And it's no Leonardo in the Dominican Republic who do not have a green card or is a U.S. citizen. Then, and those are the things, leaving my mom with 6 children in the Dominican Republic was very hard for me. And I knew at a very young age that I was responsible for her. And I wasn't able to stay in school because I came out when I was 17 and my father put me in high school. I only was able to stay in high school for 1 year. And my father sat down with me and he said, look, I'm not responsible for your mom. And that was true. If you want to send money to your mom, you have to work. And because you can stay in school if you want to, and you don't have to pay anything in the house. But if you want to send money to your brothers and sisters and your mom, you have to work. And I made that decision to get a factory job and start working, 18 years old, to be able to support my mom and my 6 children in the Dominican Republic, my 6 brothers and sisters in the Dominican Republic.
What a beautiful story. I mean, it's a common theme that's really part of the fabric of the United States, going back to our origin. And, it does put you in a place where at least some of the candidates that I've already talked to or that we just know, I'm not sure how many people, never mind the piece of coming from the Dominican or anywhere else outside of the United States, but the fact that you worked in factories, I wonder if there's some candidates, I wonder if they've ever swung a hammer or ever had any experience like that. And we hear so much talk about understanding the existence that many people have in the United States. Granted, it's changing a lot. Automation's changing things. It's already changed a lot and will continue to. But talk about your experience as somebody in the workforce, not only fending for yourself, but fending for your family. That seems like it would have shaped you significantly.
It did. And a lot of the things that I do at the State House represent that. That's why I was able to pass the minimum wage, to raise the minimum wage, because I know what it is to live check to check and to be able to work in a factory making the minimum wage when I work in New York. And even when I moved to Rhode Island, I work in factory here. But, in my entire family work in factory, my father, my stepmother, and my mom, when she came from the Dominican Republic, I was able to bring her in 1987, my mom working as a hotel workers, and I did too. Then working in those companies make your mind who you are and what those people go through every single day, not having benefits. Because a lot of people in factories, they don't have sick day, they don't have vacation, they don't have any of the benefits that some other places you have in the United States. Then that helped me to provide some of the legislation. One legislation that I did that it really represent us, it was when my stepmother came to the United States, and she had to do her driving test. She went like 7 times. Because she didn't speak the language, and she was nervous. Then I was able to pass a legislation here. So you come in, you can take an interpreter with you, sit in the back of the car, and just tell them what they're telling you to do. Go right, go left, or stop. Many people come from the country, and they know how to drive, but they don't speak the language. And having a car in Rhode Island is not a luxury, it's a necessity.
That's right.
Because you have to go to work. You have to go from point A to B. And without a car, you cannot do it. And those are the things, all that you're saying really make the person who I am today.
Yeah, and of course, international driver's licenses are like 3 months of rights or something like that. So it's not, it's like you've got to get a driver's license. And we've seen this with quote unquote licenses for undocumented folks and just expanding that in general. I mean, good luck in Rhode Island if you don't have a car. I mean, I'm all about walking and bikes and even to a certain extent public transportation, although it's not as reliable as it needs to be sometimes. but you got to have a car in Rhode Island. It's just how it is. I mean, come on, let's be honest about it. And really, throughout most of the United States, most places are not connected by public transportation or the 15-minute city model where everything's within 15 minutes walking distance.
That's definitely true.
So running for Congress. So, there's a couple of things that come to mind. First of all, there's now 15 people in the Democratic primary. I'm sure that number is going to be way less. I mean, come on, once we get to filing and so on and so forth. But your name is mentioned in that sort of top tier of candidates. It's not like well, we won't name any names here, but there's some folks that I'm sure or I question whether they'll even get the required signatures, never mind have any impact on the election, but you certainly will. There's a tendency in Rhode Island media, and especially in political media, and to a certain extent, some of it's fair and appropriate, but to categorize candidates based on ethnicity. So you'll hear this from time to time, different pundits, different news outlets, so on and so forth. They'll say, well, there's three Latina, there's three women of Hispanic descent in this race, so they're going to split the Latino, Latinx vote down the middle or something like that. And again, some of that's fair because there is no question there's identity politics that impact who turns up to vote, who participates in early voting. At the same time, what a low bar to assess a race for. I mean, what are we going to do? Say, all right, well, Rodney Allen Waters and Gabe Amo are going to split the black vote? I mean, let's use it. You know what I mean? So what's that like? I mean, differentiation based on actual policy and experience seems way more important than what box you check off on an SAT test for your ethnicity. Is that correct?
No, I agree with you, and that's one of the most common questions that you get, and not just in the American politics, but we hear the same thing in the Spanish. Or the Latinx. I don't like to use that.
Well,
but in the Latino community, you hear the same. Yeah. It's true. But you said, what do you want to say?
Oh, no, I was just going to say the Latinx thing is really interesting because I'm also, when it first started emerging, I know it's a 20, 30-year-old term that's been bandied about, but, my partner, my wife is Latina, and she can't stand Latinx, and there's so many people who are like, that is such an absurd, and she's very open-minded and progressive and probably way more extreme in most cases than I am in that regard, but she's horrified by this, and she's like, that's such a white, trying to appeal to like somebody from Brown University or something like that. Is that can we do you think that Latinx, just before you continue, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm glad you brought it up, do you think that term should not be used?
To be honest to you, I don't know if that should be used, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
I do not like it. I'm Latina or Latino, and Latinx, it's a new thing for me.
Yeah.
I had to say it. And some people feel comfortable with that. Fine with them. I do not like it. I agree with your wife.
Yeah.
I'm Latina, but in the Latino community, they said the same thing that you were just talking about, that we are going to split the vote and that we all to come together. I think we're going to see this more often. We have great people in the community, people who grow up, who want politics now. Then we're going to have more women of color running for the same office, not just in this Congress seat, but you're going to have it in local seat. Then, we think I had a very diverse community now that I represent. I don't think only Latino voted for me. I think people from Asia voted for me. I think Caucasian voted for me. I think African American voted for me. Then I don't believe that. I think we're going to get the person who worked harder, who had the best team, not the most money. Because I always said when they call me, I said, I'm not going to be the candidate with most money, but I would be the candidate with most volunteers. And I think they're going to make the difference. But it's no way to prevent that to happen. It will happen.
Absolutely. So that volunteer effort, it's fair to say this race is really going to come down to, while it's important to have some money, there's no question about it. We've seen Audiello and Amo and Regenberg announce big money. We've seen Matos, Lieutenant Governor Matos, with some big endorsements and so on and so forth and money. Door knocking is going to be so important. The question is, you have a ton of respect on the ground. I mean, if you just, walk around this neighborhood, you have a high level of name recognition. A lot of people, if they find out, I'm I'm involved in politics. They'll ask if I know you, and you're right. It's not based on ethnicity. We're a very diverse community here in South Providence, Elmwood, and you're well known there. The question's going to be, you're on Fish Road in Tiverton, Rhode Island, with your volunteers, or somewhere up in Bristol Warren or something like that, or down in Middletown and Newport East, walking up and down Aquidneck Avenue. How do you build your name recognition there? And what's your door? The door has been knocked. The door opens. You or your volunteers introduce yourselves. What do you say?
Well, it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be as hard as we think it is. Because even that I don't have name recognition and other side, that's what people think. Rhode Island, one thing about Rhode Island is the smallest state, and everybody knows somebody somewhere. And no doubt about it. Yeah. And for best, they said that's a good thing about Rhode Island, and that's a bad thing about Rhode Island. Then I have people that I know people who know people in Warren, who know people in Newport, who know people in Woonsocket, who know people in East Providence or in North Providence. The Latino community is not just in Providence. And I'm not going to be asking just for the Latino community. Like I said, I think the work that I've done for the Senate, we just had to express that word out. And like you said, one thing people know me is because they know Ana would never play the back. I always be a front person. I always say what I think. And I like to make people at the State House uncomfortable. And how do you make that? Because I fight for my community. I fight for myself. I don't take, when somebody come to me, and I said a few story. I remember a few years ago, I was sitting in front of the Senate, and it was the last day of the Senate. And the Speaker, Marietta, was walking by us, and he's come to me, and he said, "Hi, Senators, how you guys doing?" And I said, "Not too good, Speaker." And he said, "Senator, why you not doing too good?" And I said, "Well, Speaker, we work so hard for our bill all year, and you don't pass them in the House. We pass it in the Senate, but nothing happen in the House." And he said to me, "What bill are you talking about?" I said, "I had two of them that you've been killing them in the House." He said, "Which one, Senator?" I said, "The doula bill and Gear Up." He said, "But you're doing it wrong, Senator. You need to put that in the budget." And I said, and that advice, if I didn't say that to him that afternoon, I didn't know that and he said to me, "Go to the governor, sit down with the governor, explain both of your bills, make sure that you put it on the budget, and you will see how it passes." I said, "If I do that, you're not going to take it out." He said, "I promised you I would do my best. Right. Depending how it is, I would not take it out." Yeah. And that's what I did. As soon as that we passed, I was on the phone trying to get in touch with Governor Raimundo. Every single day I was calling and gave me a hard time to get an appointment with her. But I finally got that appointment with her. And I told her how good Year Up program is for so many youth who are not ready to go to college, or they don't know what to go to college for. And I say how the state is not giving any money to that program. And I was able to pull Year Up in the budget for $200,000. Wow. And I was able to pass doula, because then we were able to put it on Medicaid, because then we had to put it in the insurance. And those two bills, but it's something I didn't know. Nobody told me. I was new in the Senate. Nobody in the Senate told me that I had to do that. If I wasn't upset that day and I stopped Speaker Mariello, let me tell you, he wasn't a very easy person to approach. Right. And I gave him all the credit, because he didn't teach me that lesson that night, I was not able to put those Year Up, getting now $200,000 from the state. And we had doula for many women of color in the most difficult time of your life, when you're pregnant and you need that support around you.
Yeah, a really important program, no question about it. Both are, actually. And it shows that you understand politics, and there's a trade-off that happens. It's not just you're in your lane, I'm progressive, I'm moderate, I'm conservative, whatever it is. You have to have that cross-pollination of ideas, and sometimes you have to form unlikely alliances or partnerships, or get advice from somebody that you may disagree with on certain issues, or may seem, unapproachable because they're so powerful. do you think you can take that same understanding, that same skill set to Washington, D.C.? You'll be the 535th congressperson. I mean, it's going to take a little time. I mean, nobody comes in on day one, and you probably shouldn't come in on day one, unless you're, George Santos, you know what I mean? But can you make it happen in D.C.?
I can. I can make it happen because, like I said, I'm very open-minded. I say what I think. I'm not afraid to talk. I'm not afraid to ask. I'm not afraid to be a team player. And that's another thing. Even that I'm very confront person, but I'm a team player too. Mm-hmm. And I had a very good relationship with the Democrat and the Republican. And and even both of the party are divided. Because if you see the Democrat, we are divided. They're very progressive, moderate Democrat. And then on the other side, you had the Republican had the same problem. Then I think we need to be able to work together, put our country first, and our interests on the side. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I know I can do it, and I prove it through the years in the Senate, and I can do it in Washington.
So some big picture stuff. I guess let's start with this. Aaron Regenberg put out a statement this morning. He's not going to accept any corporate PAC money. He called for all of his fellow candidates in this race to not accept corporate PAC money. What's your thought on that? Would you decline corporate PAC money?
Well, I don't think I'm going to get it. I don't think that would be an issue to me, to be honest to you. It's sad to see. And it's so hard for people of color to run for office like this one because money is such a big deal. He can say whatever he decides to say. I like Aaron. I know him for many, many years. We work campaign together. But now I'm not going to say I believe everything he said because a few months ago, a few weeks ago, I would say like a month ago, that happened. He called me and he said, Ana, Senator, are you running for office? I said, yes, I'm thinking about it. And he said, I was very happy to see your name. One of the person I was so happy to see is your name. And he said, see, you run, I would not run. And I said, really? And really gave me the push that I needed to run. And unfortunately, I called him after, and he said, well, I don't think I do any damage to you if I run. I'm going to do it anyway. Then I don't know, see, I believe everything he said because that happened to me already with him.
So Aaron Regenberg told you a month ago or so that if you got into this race, he would not.
Yes.
And then he got into the race after the fact.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, he said to me, you're still thinking about it, and I will continue making my phone calls. But if you run, I will not run. And I will, and for me, that was the push that I need. Because at the beginning, I wasn't planning to run for office. Mm-hmm. I wasn't. I didn't think I was able to get the money that you need to run for this office. I didn't think I was going to have the support that I needed. And I was out. I was going to support somebody else in the race. And then so many people in my district, and even out of my district, they call me and say, Senator, run. We need somebody like you. And something happened to me in one event. I was in an event more than a month ago. And I went there because they invited me to do a citation. And I presented the citation. And then I stand up and went in the corner looking at the event. It was for children-friendly service. And an older guy out of nowhere, he was, I never met him. I never seen him. And he's from Warwick. And he came to me. And he said, he held my hand. And he said, Senator, why you don't run for office? We need people like you in Washington. And there was another guy next to me, a Dominican guy. And he looked at me and he said, Senator, that's a message. Mm-hmm. Really, you should think about it. Talk to God first and then talk to yourself. And he says, since you do it, I will support you. And those are the kind of thing. And I was in my house one day cooking, and a friend of mine called me. What are you doing, Senator? I said, I'm cooking. Oh, can you come to my house? Not too far from my house. I walked there, and there was like 50 people in his house. They were walking to my house to ask me to run for office.
Really? So that you actually had a sea of people turn up at your house asking you to run? 50 people?
Yes.
So your statement when you announced, you had put in there a message about, I heard from the community, and there was this big push. And sometimes people say that, and the reality is that there was no such event or anybody actually turned up and was like, hey, please run. But in your case, you're saying it actually happened where the community stood up, dozens of people said, please run?
Yes, and that's why I'm in this race. They promised me I will be there, and I can see it. I did a meeting just to see. 70 people show up to that meeting, and willing to work with such energy, willing to do whatever they can to make sure that I will be the next Congresswoman in Rhode Island.
Wow.
Then that was very powerful to me. And that was the reason I'm running. I wasn't at the beginning thinking. And then I got that conversation with Otto when he said that to me. Oh, see, you run, I will support, he didn't say he would support me,
right,
but he said I will not run. And I'm very happy to see your name in there. I was like, he said, I don't want to see a white man in that position again. And then he come out and run. Then I don't know. Then that's my thing.
Well,
yes.
I'll have to follow up with Mr. Regenberg on that one, but that's really powerful. It's actually emotional to hear that you're the community. It doesn't surprise me because people care and people identify somebody that can be their ambassador, and they want that person to be in a position of influence, whatever it is, whether it's in Congress or otherwise. But I think that's a really cool story to tell because so much of our politics has become fluff. And like I said, there's people who say, oh, the community called on me to run. And then the reality is it was like, well, their sister said, maybe you should run. But I just find that really impressive. And it doesn't surprise me in Elmwood and South Providence because as diverse of a community as we are, there's a ton of overlap, whether it's at the restaurants on Broad Street or this Walgreens over here or just walking down the street in the park. Faces become familiar with each other, and there's a bind here that, I don't know, it just feels like there's a real community out here. And it doesn't surprise me that people know who you are and that your community would say, yeah, you should run for Congress. That's totally plausible here. Maybe in other places, there's certainly in other places, but it just makes sense in this context. All right, so a couple of congressional level questions here. So there's kind of two major spheres that right now we're in trouble as a country in a lot of ways. The political divide is very severe. It's gotten to a point where has it debilitated the country entirely? No, it hasn't. We're still moving forward. We're still the United States. But economically speaking right now, we're in trouble. I mean, housing prices, cost of living in general, wage stagnation, decrease in some benefits in some cases for people, emerging from COVID, healthcare. I mean, on and on it goes. What's your philosophy to get the American project back on track so that it serves the average Joe and Mary public out there that are saying right now, geez, I did everything the right way. I'm in debt. I can't afford to live a life that is up to the standard that we have established as a country previously. What's the fix?
One of the things that I noticed in the United States that we don't do enough for working families. And when I said that, and that's one of the biggest issues that we have. We if you are working family and you make sometimes a little bit, but not enough to be able to survive in this economic today. And one of the things that I really think that we need to do to be able to help working family is to raise the table for poverty rates in the United States is very, very low. And now that we raised the minimum wage, we thought we were helping people. And now I notice we're hurting them. Because now, see, you making $15 an hour, you don't qualify for child care. You don't qualify. So many people who maybe qualify at the beginning for food stamp, now they don't qualify for those programs. And especially child care. It's so expensive. The UNAP will be able to pay $300 a week to get a kid and child care for you to be able to work. And I really think that's something that we need to fix it. And that's something that I've been looking, not now because I'm running for Congress. Since I passed the minimum wage, I started thinking about that. Because I know sometimes you qualify, but for $2 more than you make, you are not qualified for child care.
That's right.
And how do we help these working families if we don't put that standard up? And one of the things is, for me, is to raise the poverty table in the United States, because $15 an hour is not a wage today for people to make it. And we need to fix that. And they do. It's not, that was built in 1965, and every year they look into it, but they don't do enough for people to survive. And I want to focus on working family, people who want to go back to work. We saw so many business to close the door because they don't have workers. But how we send people back to work? See, we wasn't paying enough. I was very proud of. They wanted to kill me when we did pass the minimum wage. But then after they noticed that after the pandemic, people wasn't going back to work. And then they has to do it themselves without even, the minimum wage is not ready to $15 an hour yet. But most of places now, they pay more than $15 an hour. Then that means it's a lot of mom who are not qualifying for daycare. Then they cannot go back to work. They has to go back to be on welfare to be able to survive. Yeah. And the purpose is to get them out of the system, to let them go back to work. We're going to be here. We're going to support you. We're going to help you. We're going to invest in our community. See, we don't invest in our community, we're not going to have an education system that works. Because until we get children to go to school hungry, until we get children that don't have housing, a proper housing, they're not going to learn. How are they going to be able to learn? Because their mind is thinking where they're going to go after school, where they're going to get the last meal. And those are the things that I promise everybody who listens to this interview, that I will work very hard because I know what that is. I grew up in the Dominican Republic when my mom sometimes didn't have no food for us. When it was hardly, we lived in one apartment, a little house that my mom had, and we were 7 sleeping in one bed. Then I know what that is. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I know what is coming, that you don't have running water in your house. I know how you feel as a kid, that you don't know where your net meal coming from. And living in the most powerful country in the world, I don't understand how things like this can happen here.
Yeah, I completely agree. We should not be in that position. There's no excuse for it, and our priorities are completely off in so many areas, and there's just no excuse for it. And we need Congress to act now. And you watch what the Congress has become, and it's become a lot of theater. It probably always has been, but it's very apparent there's a lot of theater, and there's a lot of big picture questions that are thrown about. But at the end of the day, the working family from Rhode Island to California, North Dakota to Texas, everything in between is suffering right now. There's no other way to put it, and it needs to be corrected. Otherwise, that's the real collapse that we will experience. Yes, the political divide. There's not going to be a civil war, and maybe there will be, but it doesn't. That's not the issue. The issue is the suffering of the working class person, and you're completely right that there are so many people who do not qualify for benefits, are super hard workers, multiple jobs, side hustles, driving Lyft or Uber or whatever it is. And because of that, they're disqualified from benefits. And then guess what? They're at a disadvantage because of that hard work. That is not capitalism. That is something else that is completely out of control, and we got to reel it back in.
Yes, and we need to fix that. Yeah. And you mentioned a very good thing, people who doing Uber, people who doing Lyft, and that's very common today. And so many people left their job just to dedicate their life to do this. And I had a bill in the House that I think tomorrow it's going to be hearing about that, because we seeing those people, but it's going to be our responsibility tomorrow. Why? Those people, they don't have health insurance. They don't have a 401k. They don't have any benefits. And what's going to happen when those people age and they have to go to Social Security? It's a bit confusing for people. They think they pay taxes, they pay into their Social Security. And that's not true. Sure. And especially in our community. That's why they believe, I do my taxes every year. Yeah, that's not enough. You're not investing in your Social Security. And who knows if we're going to have Social Security at that time. And that's one of the things that we need to secure for elderly, that they work so hard to get their Social Security. And that's one of the things. I represent so many elderly in my district that I will work very hard to make sure Medicaid, Social Security will be protected. But my thing is, see, we don't make those big companies responsible. And they say, well, they're not my workers. They are your workers. You would not survive without them.
That's right.
then they are your worker, and you're making enough money for able to pull a plan for them to be able to get health insurance, to be able to them some 401k together for them that they get to pay for. Yes, but you can accommodate them because we all the state going to pay at the end. When those people get sick, where are they going to go? To the hospital. They don't have insurance. Sooner or later, we will pay for. Then I think we need to make those companies responsible for those workers. I believe people need to make sure that those workers have health insurance and make sure those workers had some kind of protection when they get elderly. They can apply for 401k or any financing thing. And that's one of the things I'm pushing at the state level, but that's one of the things I would push in Washington because it needs to be done in Washington, not local.
Last area here. So, look, the world order is shifting. Things are changing. The world is flattening. The United States may or may not stay as the global dominant, the hegemon, the dominant force in global affairs. We're seeing China negotiate peace between countries, and things are just shifting a little bit. But right now, we also see what I would call proxy wars. I don't think anybody would. I mean, it's not that like, it's not a particularly smart thing to say. It's just an obvious thing to say. In Ukraine, first of all, we see Russia, the incursion into Ukraine, but then there's questions about the engagement of the United States in the Ukraine, whether it's with tanks, certainly if there were ever troops on the ground. We also see what's happening in Sudan, where gangs are, there's a revolution taking place, and that's a microcosm of other, you can go on and on. Yemen, I mean, you could even argue North, South Korea. All around the world right now, the spheres of influence are changing, and right now they're primarily playing out in proxy wars. What should Congress do in terms of U.S. engagement in these wars that take place in foreign nations that are, again, not involving American troops, but we're funding one side of these conflicts? Should we be doing that?
Yes. I really think we should be doing that. We go around saying that we are the Democratic, that we want, we fight for people's rights. Then we cannot ignore what's happening around, because if we ignore that, it sooner or later will affect us one way or another. And I really think the United States, we're the most powerful country in the world. Then we have to demonstrate that. And how we do it? Defending people who are fighting for the same right that we have in this country, that we are so benefits. And I really think the United States need to continue and need to do more. Yes.
Would you vote for a war authorization in Ukraine if that came up?
I don't know what I decide at this time, but if we need to do it, we need to do what we need to do. And I really think that's the only thing bipartisan now, because I think both of the party agree on this. And so you listen in Washington, then I always listen to the news, is how they are one side and one side. But when you're talking about defending, those kind, you can see both of the party getting together and doing the right thing. Yes.
President Biden announced this morning that he's seeking re-election. He did so in a YouTube video that I watched. I got like halfway through it and got distracted. I have to go back and watch the rest of it at some point here. But should President Biden, based on, could be the criteria of age or effectiveness, should he seek re-election in your mind, or is it time for the Democratic Party to elevate somebody else?
Well, I really think we need to have more people running. But I don't want to say about the age, because I'm one of the oldest one who are running for office here. Then if I said that I don't think that he should run because of his age, then I'm going to say what I'm saying about me. I don't have the age that he has. But
I was going to say, you're looking pretty good for 80. You're looking pretty good for 50.
But around that. But, that's the thing. I think it's not age. I think it's capacity.
Yeah.
And he think he's still capable of doing. To be honest, I think we had to grow more leader into the Democratic Party. And I think we need to start looking for the young people to coming in and empowering them and teaching them and be there and telling them, I will help you. I will show you what I learned through the years. And I really think that's what Biden should be doing. But It's his decision. It's not something I would say I would not support it or supported him. I really been more focusing on what's going on in Rhode Island right now. And when I get to that route, I will make my decision. But I like the job that he's doing. I think he's been doing a great job since he's became the president of the United States. But I don't want to say the age, definitely. I seen young people who don't have no common sense. And I said somebody with age who that have at least common sense. Then I think age don't play a big role. Depending on your capacity and he's still capable of doing it, I don't see why not.
Senator Ana Quezada is running for Congress in the Congressional District 1 race, one of 15 Democrats. Hey, good luck to you, and thanks for being here today.
No, thank to you. It really was a very nice conversation with you this morning, and I'm very happy that you invited me. And I ask anybody who want to connect to us or call us or help us in any capacity, it can be economically, but volunteers, to please get in touch with us. My phone number is 401-255-0345. Get in touch with me. We need all the help we can get, and I would be more than happy to be the first women in Rhode Island to represent you in Congress. Thank you.
At HealthSource RI for Employers, we provide access to health insurance to more than 1,100 local businesses and nonprofits, and 96% of them renew through us every year. Maybe it's our choice of 19 different health plans, our 10 years of customizing solutions, or our one local team of dedicated experts helping employers find quality health insurance. See how our numbers stack up for you. Learn more at healthsourceri.com/employers.